What's happening, guys? So coming at you with a new reverse diet series. So one of the problems with the reverse diet series that I'm doing for myself is it's very much based around trying to build muscle, coming out of being pretty close to stage lean, and it's not very conducive to a reverse diet for the normal person who is maybe got a history of dieting and not necessarily super lean, but wants to go through a reverse diet to help improve the metabolism a little bit, get out of the dieting, yo-yo dieting cycle, and make some improvements and set themselves up for a better future. So thankfully, I have a new client. Her name is Vivyen. I will put her Instagram in the description, or I'll put it on the screen here, or maybe both. Make sure you go check her out. I'm very grateful for you, Vivyen, as she is allowing us to document her reverse diet throughout the entire process. Again, I cannot thank Vivyen enough because it's very difficult to just put yourself out there, and not very many people want to show them going through a process like this where they're going to be gaining weight, right? Where in all likelihood anyways, there's going to be weight gain. Nobody really is going to want to document that. So it's hard to find somebody who's willing to do that. So again, thank you, Vivyen. Hopefully you guys will find this helpful, and if there's anything you want me to try to cover that I'm missing throughout this series, please let me know, but I hope you will find it valuable. What we will do is every single week, we'll do our check-ins. She'll check in with me. She'll let me know how things are going. She's gonna report her macros to me and everything else, give me feedback on how things are going and everything, and I'm going to go ahead and just document it and give that to you. And this is something that we don't see a lot out there. It seems like most of the reverse diet stuff that's out there that's actually being documented is on people who are bodybuilders or bikini competitors or some type of physique competitor, usually coming out of a show or trying to build muscle or something like that. So there's not a whole lot of stuff out there with just kind of a quote-unquote normal person just trying to go through a reverse diet. All right, she is a former powerlifter, someone who will probably powerlift again in the future, and the powerlifting is actually part of why she has a history of dieting, which is something that I want to explain as we get into things here. But anyway, a little background on Vivyen. She's pretty young. She's only 21 years old, but she has been dieting on and off for the last about 2.5 years or so. Quite a bit of ups and downs and some binging and restricting cycles. And, you know, it kind of started with the powerlifting, trying to compete in a certain weight class. That's one of the kind of the dangers of powerlifting, is we always want to try to be as competitive as possible and try to get down to lower weight classes. And what ended up happening is she would diet down for a weight class, the meat would get over, and then she would kind of overeat and gain a bunch of weight, try to diet back down for it again, overeat, and it kind of became this pattern. And it started becoming more and more difficult to diet or successfully diet, as we've talked about so many times, is the more times you diet, the harder it gets. And what ended up happening is over the last couple of years, there was just a lot of repeated cycles of trying to diet down, binge, diet down, binge, diet down, binge. So she's kind of put herself in not the best spot. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say like her metabolism is trashed. I don't think it is. You know, she seems to be maintaining around 1,700 calories at about 128 pounds. So that's not terrible by any means. That's still over about 13 times your body weight. So that's not a terrible position, but it could be better. And one of the biggest things we want to do is stop this pattern of binging and restricting, because thankfully for her, she's young and she hasn't done this for, you know, dozens of years like a lot of people have. So she's still relatively new to this, and you know, she's still in a position where, okay, we can correct some of this behavior, we can put her in a better spot metabolically and hopefully set her up for a lifetime of success, rather than going through the continuous pattern that she's down, that most people seem to go down their whole life. All right, so let's dip this into about at 21 rather than wait until we're 40 something and then have this happen over and over again. So like I said, she is a powerlifter, although she has battled a lot of injuries, so she's not currently powerlifting. She's doing her own programming. I'm only doing her nutrition, and also giving cardio recommendations. I always do that with my nutritional clients. I like to give cardio time as well, because that's a big part of our dieting process and the calorie expenditure in calories in versus calories out. So what I wanted to do with Vivyen is I wanted to take the calories that she said that she was eating. Right? So she said she was around 1,700 calories. I wanted to keep that the same the first week, just tweak her macros around a little bit. So I've got her on, hang on a second, I got it here. Oh, I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. So 120 protein, 190 carb, 52 fat. And then I also have her tracking fiber. I like to do this as well, just to make sure we're getting a decent amount of fiber in and make sure we're including some nutritious foods that, you know, a lot of your fruits and vegetables and stuff are gonna have a lot of fiber. So that kind of almost forces us to make sure we're eating a semi quote unquote clean diet and not just eating whatever the heck we want to fit our macros, which we can do to an extent, but we always want to pay attention to food quality as well, because you will feel better and perform better with quality foods. So anyway, I like to set, most of the time I like to have fiber be in a range, all right? So everyone's a little bit different. I like to have it between like 1 gram per 100 calories up to 2 grams per 100 calories, and then just try to keep it somewhere in there. Some people do better with more or less. Some people can go way more. Now, one of the problems with a lot of fiber is a lot of people end up having kind of the same problems they have with really low fiber. Constipation, GI distress, you know, bloating, feeling uncomfortable. And so that's why I like to try to keep it in a range. However, there are some people that can just eat a ton of fiber and they get away with it and it works well for them. So that's why we always have to pay attention to each individual and what works better for them. Some people need to go lower fiber or they have issues. So that's why I like to just kind of have a range and play around with it and see. Anyway, I also took her and gave her 3 10-minute sessions of cardio. This is a little bit backwards of what we would normally do during a reverse diet, because typically in a reverse diet, we're trying to increase calories, we're trying to reduce cardio, and get ourselves in a position where we can now diet down the road and we have options to add more cardio and eat less calories and not have to starve right off the bat, hopefully, or at least be in a better position so when we do start, the body will respond. In Vivyen's case, she was not doing any cardio to begin with, so obviously we can't reduce none. And while that may be beneficial for metabolism down the road, I do find that it's beneficial to have at least some cardio in our training program or in our routine, just because I think there are benefits of cardio besides, you know, just calorie expenditure. You know, we've got, it'll help with work capacity, you know, it's healthy for the heart and lungs. You know, there's benefits of cardio. It's just we don't want to overdo it in a reverse diet phase. And that's a problem a lot of people have, is they'll almost look for a loophole in the reverse diet and say, okay, well, I'm increasing my calories, but I don't want to gain weight, so now I'm going to increase my cardio. And then you basically net the same, right? So your calories in versus calories out ends up being the same. So yeah, you're eating more, but you're expending more and you're not really getting anywhere with your reverse diet. So you don't want to make that mistake. But with this situation, I think it's going to be beneficial to keep a little bit of cardio in. We can also add calories a little bit faster with a little bit of cardio in there. So there are some benefits to having some. Again, we just don't want to overdo it. But that is something that I have to keep in mind now, because as we get started here, there's a few things that'll typically happen, especially with somebody who has issues with binging, is a couple things will happen when we get started. And this is, I think personally, this is why I think a lot of the times we see people lose weight in the beginning stages of reverse diet. Because for one, adherence improves, all right? So you now are with a coach and you're going through a reverse diet and you've got to report your macros, or at least tell them if you've been adherent or whatever else. Everyone does it a little bit differently. But now you have that extra accountability. So you adhere to the diet better, and now you may put yourself in a calorie deficit just because you're not doing some of that binging and overeating that you were doing before. And now we're also adding cardio on top of it, so getting a little bit extra expenditure. So in the earlier stages, we may see that there could be some weight loss happening depending on how the body responds. It's just something I had to kind of keep in mind as she reports her numbers to me and as we look at her weight and her body composition and everything else. So we will be reporting weight, body composition, so I will show pictures as well, and measurements. So these are the 3 things that we can look at besides, you know, just general things like how are my clothes fitting, how am I feeling, things like that. So as you will see here, in the first week, she was very adherent. This is not uncommon for somebody who is pretty serious about things and wants to get after it. You get that extra accountability, especially for her now. She's going to be on display, right? So the whole world's going to be watching. Yeah, the whole world, all 70 of you that watch this video, but there's going to be people watching, right? So that's just a little bit more extra accountability as well. And it's just going to be a bit of a motivator to kind of stick to the plan. But she has promised, you know, she's going to be as accurate as possible, or when I say accurate, I mean like as honest as possible. So if things get out of hand or out of line, we're going to document that. If she has problems with binging, we're going to document that. If she doesn't track, we'll document it. We're going to document the whole experience so you guys can see what the whole process can look like depending on how things go and what happens. But the first week, she was extremely adherent, more than adherent than she needs to be. I don't expect anybody to be this adherent. Now it's great. Like I would consider 100% compliance for most people would be within 5 grams of each macro and within like 30 to 50 calories for the week as a total. That would be 100% compliance. I don't even necessarily expect everyone to do that. All right, so there's so many different ways we can do this, and we can do like try to stay within 10, try to stay within 5. We can do calories and protein, and we can also go up and down on a daily basis as long as we make sure that average for the week works out. So some days you might eat a little bit more, some days you might eat a little bit less. As long as we kind of work things out for the week, everything's good. She was pretty much spot on all week long, and you know, that's going to be great. Like as much as we don't have to be that adherent, I will say over and over again, the more adherent you can be to your diet in a reverse diet, the better the process is going to go. The people who do really well in a reverse diet are always the ones that are very adherent. All right, so if you stick to your macros, the chances of that going very well and minimizing the weight gain go up significantly. One of the big traps is a lot of the times we'll fall into, well, I'm just reverse dieting, it doesn't really matter as much, I'm going to be eating more, I'm going to be gaining, what's the point, I might as well eat a little bit extra, not really track this, not pay attention to that, and it just kind of starts to add up, and pretty soon you've put on a bunch of weight that you didn't want to put on, and now you got to try to take that off down the road. So it's really good to try to avoid that as much as possible. So anyway, after the first week, she pretty much maintained. So we don't have a previous week to look at, only that kind of the first weigh-in. If you look throughout the course of the week, she was pretty even throughout. So I would consider this basically staying the same throughout the week, which is always what we're kind of looking for. That's like the big goal of a reverse diet, is try to keep things about the same as much as possible. So I would consider that a successful first week. What I did in response to that is I gave her 5 extra grams of carbs and 2 grams of fat. So that's what, a 38 calorie increase. Not a huge one, not a tiny one, just kind of a moderate bump. I want to try to take things a little bit slower with her, because for one, I think, again, she's not in a horrible position metabolically, and we want to minimize weight gain as much as we can. And one of the things we always have to keep in mind with the reverse diet is there's 2 ways you can go about it. You can either go faster or slower. If you go faster, your metabolism is going to pick up a little bit faster. You can get to a better spot a little bit faster, but you're more likely to gain weight. If you go slower, it's going to take a little bit longer, but you're less likely to gain extra weight. So we're trying to minimize that weight gain as much as possible here. And really for her, what I really want more than anything, I don't necessarily want to get her to just crazy amounts of macros. All right, now if that happens, great. If we can get her calories super high and things respond really well, great, we will take it. But in this particular instance, I'm more concerned about just not dieting for a long time. I think that would be a win. So we'll get her calories up a little bit. If we can get more, we'll take it. But I just want her to not be dieting for a long period of time so that she can be in a good position metabolically. And that's really the main benefit of the reverse diet. It's not necessarily about getting crazy high calories and just gaining a bunch of weight, or trying to just, you know, eat as much food as possible. A lot of times it's really just, let's just not diet for a long time, right? Get the calories up as much as we can so you are in a better position, and there's a lot of benefits to that besides just potentially metabolism. But if you just don't diet for a long period of time, when you do go back to diet, you will be in that much better of a position. So she had dieted earlier in this year a handful of times on and off, so we just want to get out of that trend of the ups and downs and keep things level. Now, one of the things that she reported in her first check-in was improved adherence, which is kind of to be expected, right? A little bit extra accountability. She talked about how typically she would go into the pantry and just kind of munch on snacks and overeat and just kind of like binge in the pantry, and she stopped herself a little bit and made some better choices. And a big part of that is just the extra accountability of having a coach. But I also think, you know, one of the things we're going to have to work on is an improved relationship with food, and trying to get away from chasing weight loss after you gain it and kind of getting into that pattern of, oh crap, I've gained, I better lose it, I gained, I better lose it. We want to even things out, create a better relationship with food. And one of the big things that I suggest in a scenario like this, if you're someone who has a tendency to just stand in the kitchen or in the pantry or wherever else your food is and just have a tendency to eat, the best thing you can do is take whatever you want, whatever you're going to eat and you're okay with eating, take that, measure out however much you want, put the rest away, Go into a completely different room, sit down, focus on that food, and eat it and enjoy it, rather than just kind of mindlessly eat. So this minimizes the chances of really overeating. Could you, in theory, go back to the pantry and get more and eat more? Yes, but I find it's a lot less likely to happen if you've put it away and you've gone to a different room and you're focused on that food. Right now, if you're just standing over it and you've got an open bag of chips and you're just sitting there eating it, there's a pretty good chance you're just going to keep going. It's going to be a hard thing to stop. But if you separate it completely, there's a much better chance of success. Okay, this video went much longer than I was expecting it to. I apologize for that, but I promise they won't normally be this way. There was a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about, get out of the way, and set up the table basically so you know what to expect moving forward and help you improve and understand how the process works a little bit. So moving forward, we'll just kind of take the progress, take the check-in, look at things, give you the data, talk about some things, and kind of move forward. But for this one, I want to give you like a little extra detail. So if there's anything you want to see from this, if you have any questions about anything, please leave it in the comments below. I hope you guys will like this, and I will talk to you later.
I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. Every minute, every day I've been craving.